From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
I'm honored to stand here today alongside the New Jersey State Police, the New Jersey Attorney General's Office, and the United States Marshal for the District of New Jersey to announce the addition of Joanne Chesimard to the FBI's most wanted terrorist list.
Assata Shakur, also known as Joanne Chesimard, a member of the Black Panthers and the Black Liberation Army, becomes the first woman named to the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. Convicted of murdering a New Jersey trooper in 1973, she's always proclaimed her innocence. She's lived in Cuba since the early 1980s after she received political asylum. We'll speak with scholar Angela Davis and Assata's longtime attorney, Lennox Hines. And we'll hear Assata Shakur in her own words.
The government just perceived us as a threat because they understood that we were serious, they understood we were telling the truth, and they understood also that we were becoming a much more sophisticated opposition. We were not just the piece of pie opposition, but that we wanted a real structural change in the United States.
And protests are set in Mexico City for day 2 of President Obama's visit.
Today, he has a chance to embrace human mobility and the right to have a dream and to look for a better life by passing an immediate administrative order to stop all deportations, to support the efforts for a very progressive immigration reform.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The death toll from last week's collapse of a garment building in Bangladesh has surpassed 500. Bodies are still being found in the rubble as relatives search for their loved ones. One of the major Western companies tied to the disaster is vowing to remain in Bangladesh, but with higher standards for its workers. The Canadian retail giant Loblaws used the building for manufacturing its Joe Fresh clothing line. On Thursday, Loblaws CEO Galen Weston said she's shaken by the incident and vowed to unveil new safeguards.
I'm shaken by the events that took place in Bangladesh last week, and my thoughts and prayers go out to all those who were injured and to all the families who have lost loved ones. This was a senseless tragedy. It should not have happened. Based on what we know, the top floors of the building should never have been built. And reports from the ground suggest that garment workers should never have been allowed back in the building after an evacuation was ordered.
The owner of the building, Sohail Rana, was arrested in the days after the disaster, along with several factory owners. On Thursday, an engineer who'd warned the site was unsafe, Abdurazak Khan, was also detained. Police say Rana and the other owners are blaming Khan for the collapse, even though he's known to have urged them to close the building because of cracks in its structure. The Dhaka collapse is considered the worst industrial accident in the garment industry's history. It sparked a series of protests in Bangladesh, culminating in a demonstration of tens of thousands on Wednesday, May Day. At the Vatican this week, the new pontiff, Pope Francis, decried what he called, quote, slave labor at Bangladeshi factories used by Western firms. President Obama began a 2-day visit to Mexico Thursday by holding talks with Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto. Dozens of protesters, including many people deported from the U.S., gathered outside the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City, urging Obama to follow through on an immigration overhaul. More demonstrations are planned for today before Obama moves on to Costa Rica. We'll have more on Obama's trip to Mexico later in the broadcast. During a news conference Thursday, President Obama defended his administration's decision to block access to emergency contraception without a prescription for women of all ages. The Justice Department this week moved to appeal a federal judge's ruling that the morning after pill be made available over the counter without age restrictions. Obama told reporters he's comfortable with the FDA's new policy to make the Plan B one-step pill available without a prescription to women 15 and older.
Very supportive of contraception because I think it's very important that women have control over their health care choices and when they are starting a family. That's their decision to make. And so we want to make sure that they have access to contraception.
critics say lowering the age requirement to 15 still does not go far enough toward allowing all women to prevent unwanted pregnancies. The FBI has added the former Black Panther Assata Shakur to its most wanted terrorist watch list 40 years after the killing for which she was convicted. Born Joanne Chesimard, Shakur was found guilty of shooting dead a New Jersey police officer during a gunfight in 1973. She escaped from prison in 1979 and received political asylum in Cuba. On Thursday, the reward for her capture was doubled to $2 million. Shakur is the first woman added to the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. She's long proclaimed her innocence. We'll have more on this story after headlines. In Syria, forces loyal to the regime of President Bashar al-Assad are being accused of killing up to 100 people, including many civilians. Opposition activists say the killings occurred when government troops and militia fighters raided the coastal village of al-Baida. The attack came hours after rebels killed at least 6 pro-Assad fighters traveling aboard a bus. New figures show last month was the deadliest in Iraq since 2009. The United Nations says at least 460 people were killed in growing sectarian and political violence in April. The figures' release coincided with the 10th anniversary of President George W. Bush's infamous Mission Accomplished declaration and the public opening of Bush's new presidential library in Texas. The United Nations has confirmed nearly 260,000 people died in Somalia's 2011 famine. Nearly 5% of the country's population. Half the dead were young children. In a report, the UN faulted global inaction for worsening the crisis, saying the world failed to heed early warnings. The UN also singled out the militant group al-Shabaab, which banned aid workers from critical areas where many died. At least 60 people are reportedly dead and many more missing after a mine collapse in Sudan. The mine reportedly caved in after workers dug into one of its most dangerous areas. The surviving suspect in the Boston Marathon bombings has reportedly told investigators he and his brother initially planned to strike on the July 4th holiday. According to law enforcement sources, Johar Tsarnaev said the attack came earlier because the brothers completed their bomb-making more quickly than planned. The New York Times reports the Tsarnaev brothers considered suicide attacks and viewed many online sermons by the U.S.-born cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, killed by a U.S. drone strike in Yemen in 2011. President Obama's unveiled his picks for the last 2 vacant economic posts of his administration. Mike Froman, currently Deputy National Security Advisor for Economic Affairs, has been tapped to be the new U.S. Trade Representative. And Penny Pritzker, a billionaire hotel heiress and prominent Obama fundraiser, will be the new Commerce Secretary, if confirmed. At the White House, Obama said both nominees will fight to protect the middle class.
One of the reasons I'm proud to nominate them is they don't forget what matters. They know this is not about just growing balance sheets. It's about growing opportunity for people. It's about growing a sense of security for the middle class. And most of all, they operate with integrity. And they understand that public service is a privilege. And you've got to do it right when you get involved on behalf of the American people.
Both choices immediately drew criticism from progressive groups. In a statement, the watchdog Public Citizen said, quote, given that Michael Froman has been instrumental in pushing President Barack Obama's trade policies backward to the corporate agenda that Froman also championed during the Clinton administration, this choice doesn't inspire confidence, unquote. As an heir of the Hyatt hotel chain and former head of the Chicago Board of Education, Pritzker, meanwhile, has come under scrutiny for her clashes with labor unions. She also served on the board of the failed bank Superior, which played an early and critical role in promoting subprime loans that ultimately saddled millions with crushing debt and helped crash the economy. In a petition opposing her nomination, the group Credo Action called Pritzker an anti-worker business mogul who should not be appointed. Advocates for low-income borrowers, meanwhile, are welcoming Obama's new pick to head the Federal Housing Finance Agency, Democratic Congressmember Mel Watt. The official Watt would replace Ed DeMarco, has been accused of siding with banks by opposing measures that would allow struggling homeowners to modify their loans. In a statement, the National Community Reinvestment Coalition said that, by contrast, Watt, quote, will do what is best for American taxpayers and homeowners. Maryland's become the 6th state in as many years and the 18th state overall to ban the death penalty. Democratic Governor Martin O'Malley signed a repeal of capital punishment into law Thursday following its passage by state lawmakers last month. The law replaces death sentences with life terms without the chance of parole, but not for the 5 prisoners already sent to death row. In a statement, Human Rights Watch said, quote, Governor O'Malley should ensure that the death penalty is never again used in Maryland by immediately commuting the sentences of all 5 death row inmates, end quote. At the signing ceremony, Governor O'Malley also enacted dozens of other laws, including the legalization of medical marijuana, an expansion of early voting, and allowing driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants. And Rhode Island's become the 10th state to legalize marriage for LGBT couples. Rhode Island Governor Lincoln Chafee signed a marriage equality bill into law Thursday following its passage in the State House. State Representative Frank Ferry, a longtime advocate of same-sex marriage, spoke shortly before the vote was held.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Speaker. Rhode Island is open for equality. I recommend we pass this bill.
The new Rhode Island law takes effect August 1st. Delaware is the next state expected to approve marriage equality when lawmakers take it up next week. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.
Thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily independent global news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.